call to order the December 4th, 2017 meeting of the Arlington Redevelopment Board, recorded by ACMi. First on our agenda this evening is an update as to zoning recodification and special town meeting warrant articles. So Jenny, I'll have you update us on where things stand, please.
All right. Quick update and then just sort of a request. So the update is basically that we are at a point in time where we are ready to consider putting this on the warrant for a special town meeting, which has been called for February 12th. And the warrant call is actually in your packet. How it's submitted, what we do next. And we have received, actually in the middle of this month, we received the hearing draft, which was then reviewed by all members of the zoning recodification working group. As of Friday, we received feedback from all of the members of the group, and then we've been working to incorporate and make amendments and changes that we needed to address between the second reading draft and the hearing draft. And we continue to make refinements to make sure that all of the issues were addressed that we wanted to see addressed, so that we can then put it into the final format over the next month and a half, and have additional public input through the public hearing process, and then of course bring it to the town meeting.
Is the email address that had been used previously still being checked?
The zoning recodification email,
Yeah.
yes.
And what was that email address?
zoningrecod@town.arlington.ma.us.
Okay.
So what you have in your packet tonight is, the request is we believe that we're ready, the zoning recodification working group believes it's ready, and staff believe we're ready to bring this to a special town meeting. And so we have a proposed zoning bylaw article that's in your packet that I would like to see get any feedback on, the review, and then approval of that, so that we can put the notice in this week. It would actually start publication the following week. And it would be posted for, I think, 3 weeks total, up to the point where you have your first public hearing on January 8th, as we've discussed previously. In all likelihood, there would be continued public hearings, but we don't yet know what those dates will be at this moment in time. But your first hearing date was to be January 8th. And then the other items related to this in the packet are basically the outreach meeting schedule and the sort of follow-up from the outreach plan document, which you've received previously, somewhat amended based upon the new outreach meeting schedule. It's page 10 of 17 in your packet, if you're looking at the paper copy. And it includes that we would have office hours, which would start this Thursday night, and then continue on December 14th and on January 4th. And it would take place in the department's first floor conference room from 5 to 7 p.m. And I noted the public hearing, and then we're also proposing to have 4 neighborhood meetings throughout town from 7 to 9 p.m. Wednesday, January 17th at Brackett School, Thursday, January 18th at Thompson School, Wednesday, January 24th at Pierce, Thursday, February 1st at Hardy. And then, of course, town meeting.
How are those meetings being advertised or put out to the public?
That's kind of the next step after this evening, contingent upon your interest and decision to move forward with special town meeting. Then we would begin the advertising. And the advertising would follow what's in the outreach plan, which includes various town notices, the social media, direct mailing, outreach to town meeting members, continued, I would say, and then any additional mechanisms that we could think of. We talked to various other boards and committees, or had zoning recodification working group members provide some outreach to their various constituencies, community newsletters, various Facebook pages, conversations with individuals who provide press coverage for the town. And then we also, at the bottom of the outreach plan on page 12, there's some additional materials that we will produce, which includes an extended frequently asked questions document. As you know, we currently have one, but we would add to it. We would update the guide document, which we had been working on previously, and then we would update some presentation materials as well, so that we can use those for the meetings. So that is, that's everything. And I don't know if, David, you would like to add anything, and then also in the audience is Steve Revelek, who's also a participant of the zoning recodification working group.
I think David and Steve, if you're able, you could tell us how many of the errors that were brought up, or errors, concerns, questions that were brought up in the October hearing were found and sorted out for this version.
That I don't know the
That's kind of
answer
an open-ended
to.
question.
Laura was incorporating
Yeah.
not only all the working group comments, but all of the other comments as well.
She took every individual member's comments together and then merged it all together into the annotated document
Yeah.
that was shared with you this afternoon.
Yeah.
And I actually, and we actually only got this today as well, with all the comments merged into it, so I haven't even had a chance to look at the full document yet.
But I would say overarchingly, the comments have been incorporated in here
Yeah.
and or the issues resolved.
Okay.
We still need to go through and do one more big proofreading of the entire document. There's a lot of
So
little
when
things.
will this go out to the
So
town at
if we send out the notice, if we send out the notice to be posted next week in the Advocate, we could have this ready to go by the end of this week or early next week, or sooner, depending upon the desire of this board.
And I think I'm certainly planning to take a complete look at this before the next working group meeting, which is Wednesday morning. So between now and then, I'm going to take a run through it. Hopefully, most of the other members will as well.
Okay.
I will say just one more thing, that Bob Ritchie and Bob Mitchell, as well as Judy Barrett, have provided all of their feedback now, so we have all of the consultants' feedback.
And those, I
included.
noticed those names in the,
All of that
in
is
the annotations
incorporated in
here,
this,
so,
this
good.
most final draft from the
Okay.
consultant.
so it looks like what we got is more of a red line than we had previously.
No, the red line is actually our red lines,
Okay.
our internal staff red lines.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would all be completely cleaned up.
Understood.
And
Yeah.
members of the working group took responsibility for the different sections. So, for instance, I focused on the parking section. And I don't know, Steve, did you have other comments?
Yeah, just in terms of a few specific things that, were brought up in the earlier public meeting. One was the removal of retaining walls from the definition of structure, and that's back. One was the rewriting of the purpose statement, and the original purpose statement has been restored. This is not related to the document itself. There were a number of requests to stretch out the process, and it's been stretched out by about a month. And aside from that, the other main thing I remember were requests for red lines, and that's still a topic of discussion and on the agenda for this week, I believe.
Wednesday morning.
Okay. Good. Gene?
Just, what's the difference between the two types of shading, this sort of light shading and darker shading? in
Oh, I
the
think it's
document?
just the way that it copied, because you have a black and white
Yeah, if you pull
version.
it up.
So it's actually,
See, like dark and light?
yeah, it's just the, there's like a footnote embedded in there. So anything that's highlighted has a footnote
It's
attached.
a little bit more clear if you look at it.
Oh,
in
so
color.
they're just different colors
Yeah.
on, okay.
There's multiple
Yeah,
colors.
when you
Oh,
actually,
got
when
it,
you actually
got it.
pull it up in Word, you'll see,
Although
just based on context what those
in the
are.
definitions, the shading also might be indicating that it's in group. The definitions fit within a group.
Some of the shading is not comment related, it's actually part of the
document.
document.
All right,
Yeah, it's a lot more clear when you look at it in color that that's the case.
Yes.
okay. And will there be either a red line, which I think would be probably not usable because the whole thing's gonna have a red line, or a reference document that, takes each one of these and says, the change that we didn't, here's where it is?
There already are 2 guidance
Right,
documents
right,
that.
will they be updated?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
show this.
yeah, Jenny mentioned that, I think, that we'll be updating those so they match up with this latest draft, because
Right.
definitely some of the things in there have changed. And like Steve mentioned, we're continuing to discuss whether there's a way to effectively provide something closer to a red line document, because as you said, if we just did a straight red line document, compare, the whole document would be red line.
Right, it would be useless.
Yeah, it would be useless, so, so we're working on it.
And that's part of the discussion on Wednesday morning with the zoning rectification working group, to discuss that as the next step in this process.
And when will the reference documents be ready?
Depends upon which direction we take. If we're just updating the existing documents, those guide documents that we provided earlier, I guess, a couple of months ago, actually. That won't take as much time if we have to go, depending upon what type of red line sort of document. I guess it depends upon what we would be doing with that and who would be producing that.
So you wouldn't
I'm
just
not-
keep the original reference document that listed all the changes in reference?
That's the one that we would, in all likelihood, update.
But you might not.
I've seen that.
I'm not sure which one we're going to update.
Gotcha.
That's what we're
We'll
planning
find
to
out
talk
on
about on Wednesday. But if there's a preference of the board, then I'd be happy to convey that to the working group as well.
And we've had a range of feedback about those documents. Some people found them very useful, and and they were able to use them effectively. And some people didn't find them as useful for various reasons. And it's just, part of it is how they were approaching looking at the documents, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, just to follow on Mr. Watson's comments, there were people who asked for more detail, and there were people who asked for much less detail. So it's a
Yeah.
range.
Yeah, and back months ago, when we only had a summary document of the proposed changes, people were asking for full details, so then we provided the very detailed guidance documents, and then we got comments back that people wanted a summary.
So I'm going to jump ahead in the agenda, just partially now, to talk about timing a little bit. So if we vote to put the warrant in this evening, that goes in later this week, I hope to have the hearing draft of this out by Friday.
Yes,
We then have,
but the notice would not be published until the following week
okay.
in the Advocate.
So we're giving people 3 to 4, 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks before our public hearing, which
Before
is.
the hearing.
Okay. The hearing is January 8th.
Yes.
I'm assuming we would need to continue that to a subsequent meeting. When would the following meeting be?
So if you go to your packet in, on page 14, that's our proposed 2018 meeting schedule. The challenge with January is that January 15th is a holiday, so we can't move it to the following Monday. So my suggestion would be maybe January 10th would be the continued hearing date. Or perhaps consecutive evenings, if you would be interested in that, so the 9th and 10th. But I don't think we could have it the following.
I don't think I'd want to do it on consecutive nights, because if there were any changes that we wanted to incorporate, I'd want to make sure that there is enough time to revise the document before we vote on it.
And I don't anticipate substantial amendments to the document as a result of the public hearing. There shouldn't be at that point, but that is a possibility that that could happen. I will just also point out that January 17th would be the first neighborhood meeting date,
Okay.
so that's the following week.
So even if we were to do it on January 10th, I think I'd be more comfortable with that than January 9th.
Okay.
And we're expecting that, assuming that the board votes to put this before town meeting, that would happen before the neighborhood meeting starts?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it would have to.
So then the neighborhood hearings would be discussing the final draft that's gonna be.
Yeah, the
that's
neighborhood
gonna be
meetings
before
were
town
intended,
meeting. Yeah.
intended for town
Exactly.
meeting members, but then, you know, allowing for anybody from the public to attend those meetings. But it was really meant to be, in part, that third meeting was always supposed to be an educational forum for town meeting members.
Mhm.
But then we spun it into, because at the request of zoning recodification working group and others, spun it into something that mirrors a little bit more of what the master plan process did, which was exactly 4 meetings across the community to share information about the master plan prior to it going to town meeting. So, that's what this is mirroring, in part. So if you chose January 8th and then January 10th, you might consider a third evening, just in case. Just think ahead. Maybe the 16th, or the 11th, I suppose.
Do you expect we're gonna have anything else on our agenda on those nights?
Yes, we have a public hearing on January 8th, or we will. I just received the documents today, actually. So we have 2 public hearings actually at our next meeting, and then a discussion, and then January 8th would be our first meeting of the year, and that's, there's 1 public hearing, and then there's this
This public hearing.
potentially.
So I think reserving the 10th
Mhm.
and then the 11th, suppose, for a vote or any final discussion would make sense,
Okay.
if necessary. And we
Mhm.
might be ready to vote on the 10th, but.
And what's the date of special town meeting?
February 12th. Do those dates work for everybody? I'll follow up with Ken.
Mhm. Yeah, they have to. So.
So if that's the meeting schedule, well, first question is, if we are comfortable with this proposal to move forward with town meeting, then we need to, I'd like you to approve the proposed warrant article as drafted on page 3 and 4. And this was reviewed by town council. We actually received 3 versions of a proposed warrant article. This was the one, it's actually a hybrid one, that is before you tonight. This was also, Doug had a conversation with the Attorney General's office about this and looked at other instances of similar zoning recodification and towns that have put this forward to a town meeting and what that article looks like. And this is one of the 3 recommended versions. The other 2 actually were quite reduced, I might add. So this one is the lengthiest. Glad to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Gene.
I have one question related to it on the first page,
Yeah.
3 of 17, in number 3,
Mhm.
which says improving definitions to more clearly describe zoning districts, uses, requirements, and provide greater consistency with present state law. I understand that last phrase
Mhm.
to modify improving definitions, and I thought that some of the consistency was more than simply improving definitions, but there are other things, so I wonder whether we should break that out as a separate number,
Mhm.
that,
Okay.
that says, blah, 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 and requirements, semicolon, the next one, number 4, would then say, you'd have providing greater consistency with present state law, and renumber the others. Because I think the
Okay.
consistency is more than just in the definitions.
I think you're right. Another approach, if we didn't feel it necessary to split them, is if we changed provide to providing.
But that seems like, yes, it would do that, but it also isn't the same as breaking it out to make it.
It wouldn't make it it wouldn't make it as clear.
Right,
That's true.
right.
I'd agree with that, Jane.
Did you get that, what I suggested?
So I just
So we-
basically put in a semicolon and added number 4 and deleted and put in providing.
Right, and then all the others would get numbered
Yeah.
certainly later.
Yeah. Extra and after number 2 at the very end. Just delete that. I'm just gonna
Where's that?
and
On the second page.
between 2 and 3. On page 4, technically. At the end of number 2, it says and then number 3 starts with and. So just and.
Um,
That's not the one I have.
No,
Yeah.
next page.
On the
Two
next
on
page.
page 4.
Oh, 2, gotcha.
When does this actually go in? I mean, does this go in before or after the public hearing?
Well, this is basically what will constitute the notice that will be published in the paper.
So this
and
is
then-
just notice. That
So
we're-
if we
And
end
the
up,
warrant.
if
So
we end up
it's filed
making
on
some,
Wednesday.
if we end up making some changes, and this says, changes as set forth in the proposed recodified amended bylaw dated December X 2017, then if we have the public hearing in early January, and we make some changes, how is that
Mhm.
wrapped in, considering this has a date of December X?
We would have to amend that part, the date.
Okay, we could do that?
We can do that.
Okay.
Mhm.
So just the one important point is the warrant opens and closes on Wednesday, December 6th. So that's the only time period that we can actually file the warrant article. And then the notice, as I mentioned, would then go, I would send it out on Thursday for it to be posted the following week. Thursday, Friday.
So when you do that, you would change the exact December, that would be the
They would
date.
have a date in there, yeah.
Okay.
We have any other revisions to the warrant article? Done, I think I'd entertain a motion if everyone is ready to move forward on this, keeping in mind that there's still time for revisions too. As with any zoning bylaw amendment that we put forth, there's always time for revision and review of the actual document to be put in front of town meeting.
Actually, I have a minor terminology question. In the document, in the new draft, the sections are not section 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, they're 1, 2, 3 without the point .0.
Help me out. With
So I'm looking at
section?
like the table of
The
contents.
table of contents.
And if you try, and it doesn't quite,
It doesn't match up.
It's not
the
tracking.
style doesn't quite
Oh, in
match
this,
up.
I'm sorry.
It doesn't match
The
up.
warrant,
On the
Also,
second
with
page.
how it's referred to in the warrant.
Yeah, the numbers don't
Okay,
match up
yeah.
either. We only have 8
So we'll-
sections in the table of contents, 10 of them.
And what's
Warrant.
Right, it ends
section?
at
So
eight.
as in,
It
this should just be
ends at
one.
8.
It ends at 8, not
Yeah, it
10.
ends at
One,
8.
two, definitions,
Is that because something's
district
not?
regulations, site development
I'm
standards.
looking.
Yeah, this doesn't.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
so
actually,
section
you know
7
what, 7 got
Is
moved.
not there, special residential regulations.
It's
we
just
could take
special
that out.
permits, yeah, so everything
And
moves
special
up.
permits is out, so
So it moves up.
Yeah, that's.
special
that.
districts is
Yeah.
that section.
Okay.
So there'll be 8, not 10, right?
It's actually, it's that there's not special residential regulations, it's not a separate section, and special districts should just be special regulations.
Right,
And then
so-
it ends.
Mhm.
So
So
there'll be,
that's
so
it.
there'll be 8.
It's
There will
just,
be-
Yeah, so that'll be,
so,
Okay.
okay, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what that was. That's from probably the last iteration.
Follow them.
Yeah, we also have, let me just see. No, that looks right. And I'll get rid of the zeros. I see that now. If you have any other issues with this, I guess, let me know in the next day.
okay.
But otherwise, I mean, essentially, the introduction is the same introduction that we've been using pretty consistently in all of our messages about what we're doing with the zoning bylaw. The second part is basically what we're deleting, which is the entire zoning bylaw by section, and then the next piece is what we're putting in, which is the reordering. And then the third part is any other actions related thereto, and where you can find the document for review.
Okay.
And then, of course, in the notice, we'll say when the hearing date is, the actual notice.
You know, one other thing, just in terms of making this easier for people to get to the documents online. This is a really long web address. Could we potentially put a shortened address in there that
Yeah.
people could actually type?
Yes, and we can also just do like a hyperlink in a Word,
Can,
so.
Well, it's no problem if it's an
That's-
online document that people can just
But
click
in
on,
here
but
we
if
can-
someone's
is
looking
it
at the
linked from the
paper.
front page of the town website, or?
We would put it on the front page,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that has to happen.
That's a good point. I'll see what I can do, I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I realized that after we sent out that really long link in the message to town meeting members, the ones who got it by mail, that then they couldn't click on it.
Okay, Gene?
So
Anyone?
do we do a motion?
So I need a motion and a second.
What are we,
So we would move to approve the proposed zoning recodification warrant article as amended. And have that,
And move it to town meeting,
yeah.
to move to town meeting, so that then also, with your approval, I would go about all of the next steps that follow, which include, you know, the outreach plan, updates to all the documents, finalization of the existing document, everything else.
So it's a motion to approve the proposed zoning recodification warrant article and to move to town meeting.
Yeah.
As amended.
As
So
amended.
moved.
second?
All in favor? Aye.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Ward.
the planning director suggested to me earlier today that if members of the public wish to address the board in this matter, the chairman might entertain such questions.
You can go ahead.
Thank you, sir. For the record, John Worden, town meeting member, and I think the only person still active in town who was here when we last recodified the zoning bylaw in 1975. I gather, I haven't seen any of this stuff. I asked if there was a copy available. I was told, no, you can't see it until Wednesday or Thursday or sometime. But I gather what you are going to now vote to approve is a very sketchy thing that says recodify, repeal the old zoning bylaw, put in a new one with no details. And that's going to go in the warrant, which will go to every household, so people get this, what my wife called a pig in a poke. It's a really very thick poke, I might say. A poke is a Scottish word for bag, by the way.
I understand.
Thank you.
I'm aware.
And we won't discuss what the pig is. But you said, well, people have 3 weeks now before the hearing and before the before the town meeting. This is for people who don't worry about Christmas or college students home for the holidays or any of that good stuff. No, we'll all get our copies of the zoning bylaw and study if we can figure out what you have done to change, which you're talking about maybe sort of a kind of a red line thing, some comparable table or something, but it's been a big secret what these changes, the bylaw with no substantive changes, you've been very cute about letting us know what the changes are. And that we've got to ferret them out. And some people have done some of that, and I don't know if everybody's going to do it. I just want to make 2 points. The one is, what's the rush? For 42 years we've had a zoning bylaw. It's worked. I don't see why we have to change it in such a dramatic way in a matter of a few months. And the other thing is you need a 2/3 vote. And you're rushing to get it. You think you're going to have all these meetings. You're going to persuade everybody that this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of concern out there among town meeting members. And there's a lot of people who are saying, same as I'm saying, what's the rush? Why are they bulldozing this thing ahead with such great rapidity in the middle of the holiday season? That's as good as when developers come to you for a special permit, you know when they like to do it? August, when everybody's vegged out down the Cape on vacation or something. And you're doing this the second best time, Christmas holiday. So I say, I know how you're going to vote. You're not going to pay attention to what I'm saying, but I'm saying that the town meeting members, and they're the ones you've got to persuade. And I know a number of them, I haven't taken account, a number of them are very concerned about this, and the speed with which things are being ran through is just makes it look like you're trying to hide something. So I'm just saying, for your own credibility, for the good of the town, you really should take a more leisurely approach to this very important topic.
Thank you.
May I?
Yes, you may.
Respond? I appreciate your comments and concerns, Mr. Borden, and the zoning recodification working group has been listening to the comments and concerns all along this process, which is now about a year long that we've been at this. And the original timeline would have had the special town meeting approximately a month earlier, and the whole process would have backed up at least a month, perhaps more. I forget the exact.
October.
Yeah.
October.
Yeah. So the intention originally was to get this done without intruding on the holiday season. And the reason that we are now at this point in the timeline is in response to comments from the public and the concerns expressed about wanting to understand clearly what was being proposed. The zoning recodification working group pushed the whole timeline out further in order to produce the two very detailed guidance documents, which are already out there relating to the previous draft, which has been discussed at the previous public forums. And now we've incorporated all of the comments into the new draft, which people are going to get soon.
Soon.
Well, yeah, soon. And they'll have several weeks before the hearing before this board, and then a month or perhaps more between that and the special town meeting, during which we're planning to have 4 community meetings in different parts of town, as we talked about earlier. So I think we're certainly cognizant that it's not optimal that this is happening in part during the holiday season, but the reasons for that are because of our efforts to be responsive and transparent to the public.
And extending it another 3 months just to make it easy for people, that's beyond the pale, I suppose.
I personally think it's important to keep this, something that's such a major effort and undertaking by town meeting members, separate from regular town meeting, to ensure that the focus is entirely on the document at hand and not on the other things that are brought up at town meeting. People may be equally or more concerned with when it begins to talk about town finances, schools, other things that are likely to be on the regular town meeting warrant. I think it's important to do this under a special town meeting so that it is an open process, so that everyone's questions are answered and everyone's focus is on this, instead of other town meeting business. I think it's entirely appropriate to do it separately.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add is, even though this is only a 2-page document, it references the large document. So when this goes out, everybody's going to be able to get all of the proposed changes. So it's not as if they're going to be asked to vote on a 2-page document that says we're making these changes. Every one of the changes is going to be available by the time it goes out. So this, I think this pig in a poke thing is not accurate.
Right.
And there's really no difference between how this warrant article is being structured and how typical warrant articles are structured. The warrant articles themselves don't generally contain the details of the changes.
So zoning has always been very particular because it's so specialized. I've never seen a zoning article that says, write a new codification, and that's considered an appropriate article now. We're told that the Attorney General says it's all right. Things have gotten pretty slipshod out there.
The article we are did vote to approve this evening is much more than just to write a new recodification. It lists out exactly what's being done, what's being removed, and what's being substituted.
Right. It would have been allowed to have something that was 2 sentences long, the way that you just described it, actually, John. But we went through and put in enough of the meat of why we're doing this and what the reasons are, which we've referenced before, as you know, and then talk about what is being deleted, as in most of the recodification is a reformatting and reorganization of the actual document, and then what is the new reorganization of the document and where you can find those materials. So that's what the process is. And yes, I do understand your point that that's the way that it's been written previously, but we did go through the process of making sure that it's an allowable format, and we were provided 3 versions of it, and that's, as you know now.
But when I asked if there was a version of it available that I could look at today, you said no.
No, you asked me if the zoning bylaw was available, and
Wow.
at that time, we,
Actually,
as a
this
board-
was available prior to today and was on the town website at least
Yep.
48 hours ago.
What was on the town website?
The warrant.
Proposed warrant.
Oh, well, I,
Yeah.
He's looking for the
We
bylaws.
voted on it. You can get the bylaw when it's ready to be distributed.
well, that's what I'm interested in.
It's not ready to
I
be
think
distributed
it's
yet.
nothing.
Well, the point of this evening was for the board to vote on it so that it could then move forward and then be distributed in accordance with exactly how we said it would be distributed. So that's what was just voted upon, and now it can be made available based upon the schedule that we just discussed. So,
Moving on.
okay,
We voted unanimously. Thank you, Jenny.
you're welcome.
Thank you, David and Jeannie. And Steve. Thank you, Steve.
The next item is actually the
We discussed our
schedule
meeting schedule
itself.
a little bit. Is there anything else in further detail down the road that we need to go over,
I think the only thing that,
knowing that that's likely to change?
yeah, the only thing that was, well, two things to note. One is I cut down the meeting. You usually have 2 a month, so there's only 1 in August. And then I think I changed the, now that I know the annual town meeting schedule, I changed your second meeting in April to the 23rd. It had been, I think, the previous week,
Okay.
and that's actually a holiday. And that's Patriots Day.
Okay.
So April 23rd is actually annual town meeting. February 12th is special town meeting.
Are there any proposed zoning articles unrelated to the recodification that are in the pipeline for annual town meeting?
At this point, I've only received one notification with regard to a proposed zoning warrant article for annual town meeting.
Well, for at some point to be discussed. So it may
Yeah,
not
a
be
future
for
town
annual
meeting,
town
right.
meeting, it may be for a future town meeting that's going to be about residential construction, and it's been referred to the residential study group to discuss.
Okay.
And the residential study group is maybe working on 1, maybe 2 articles. One would probably be a town bylaw, the other one potentially a zoning bylaw. And that's from the residential study group. So, other than that, no, we've been waiting to, as promised, we would conclude the zoning recodification and then entertain policy issues. So once we wrap this up, then we can move on to the other, meatier issues that we wanted to get to. But other than that, I don't know of any other citizen petitions other than the one that was just mentioned.
We'll find out about that in January.
It was helpful to have that calendar in advance, thank you. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to miss 4 of the meetings. Sorry, things happen in life.
Well, just let me know the dates when
Yeah.
you have a chance.
I'll just email it.
Okay.
I'll tell you afterward.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Meeting minutes from November 13th.
Andrew, I have a few suggested edits.
Go ahead.
If I might. In the first paragraph, in the 4th line, after the word project, it says "to on."
Oh, yeah.
So I think maybe get rid of the word "to."
2, yeah.
Down a few down where it says Mr. Lau suggested the placement of a window in the elevator lobby which be visible from the front. I think that's the side, right, of the building and
It
not the
was,
front.
yeah, it was the side of the building.
Okay.
Side of the building, not the front. And the last sentence, I think it should say condominium documents will allow, not be amended to, because I don't think there are any
They're not
condominium
drafted yet.
documents yet. So I would get rid of the be amended to.
Yes.
In the 3rd paragraph, 3rd line, after 21E, I think it should have the word assessment.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And those are my changes. Oh, one other. Sorry, missed my own handwriting. 2nd paragraph, 3rd line, I think it should say storm water mitigation, not storm
Oh, yeah.
mitigation.
Mhm.
Wouldn't it be great if we could
Be
do
nice
that?
reading.
All right.
Okay. I didn't have any other changes. David?
Did not either.
No, Jean covered it.
Okay.
So I move to accept with the changes I indicated.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any other business?
Just that I distributed as correspondence, the correspondence that I provided, the comment letter that I provided to the Conservation Commission on behalf of the board.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Our vote for the warrant was on record before we were off on another discussion.
Yes.
It's in the minutes. Okay, good. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.